Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So, I don't know how to exactly start off this video. I'm like, there's like my brain's like racked with a bunch of different things I'm thinking about right now. Like one, I hope the comments aren't turned off. And two, I think I said last week that hopefully this was going to be the last page of my sketchbook for this week, but I don't think that's the case. I didn't think I was going to be that busy this week. So I actually did like 2 spreads in my sketchbook, meaning that I still have a few pages left. And maybe by the end of this week, I might be finished with the sketchbook and then we can finally move on. So hopefully a sketchbook tour very soon and maybe before March ends. Can't guarantee, but kind of hoping. But today we're doing another kind of like simple spread. I'm kind of deciding that I kind of want to add a little bit more contrast to the spread this time. So we are going to be using some kind of pen, or like a needlepoint pen is usually what I like to use if I'm adding any black to my spreads. So even though I'm showing the 2 pens right here, I am going to be using mostly the Uniball Vision needle, which is the micro one. And the reason being is because the other one, which is my Pilot liquid point, high-tech point, is kind of like running out of ink. So I bought these Uniball Vision needles like a couple of months ago, and the reason being is because I wanted to find a new needlepoint pen to replace the ones that I had before. I decided to pick out a few kind of like simple colors for the spread that kind of fits this OC. Now I think in the past, I'm really like slurring my words right now, guys. I'm sorry. In the past, I'm pretty sure the first time I drew this OC, I said that I wasn't gonna name him until I finished the other 3. And I think it's getting a little bit difficult for me to keep up saying that, because even though I have like 2 names picked out for him, but I think I might give the other name to his brother, and we might just call him... Yeah, I think I'm not going to reveal it quite yet. I'm still like up in the air with it, but I do apologize that there's not really an easy name that you guys can call him or refer to him as whenever I ask for like suggestions for my OCs, or if you're referring to my OC. For the most part, you guys have been calling him the unnamed OC or no name OC or Sato's boyfriend. But yeah. I decided to pick like a peachy color and a kind of like little bit of a yellowy color. I didn't realize this, so the swatches that I did that came, like the swatch card that came with the Ohuhu markers, was actually like a different kind of cardstock paper. And when I swatched colors before I used them in my sketchbook, I kind of just pick whatever scrap piece of paper I have. And the paper in my sketchbook, so all 3 of those pieces of paper kind of like take the marker quite differently. So I didn't realize this, but the yellow is a lot more vibrant than I thought, but it wasn't as vibrant when I put it with the black needlepoint pen. So I'm gonna have a little bit of an issue with the contrast there, but I think it's okay. You'll see me fiddle with it a little bit when I'm working on the first one and I start inking the eyes, because I couldn't tell if I wanted to leave the bottom half of the eyes untouched and leave only the top part like blackened. But on the first one, I decided to fill it in a little bit more, and it looks kind of weird. So we're kind of treating the one on the very left kind of as an experimental one. But for the most part, I just decided to put him into a few different outfits. I always think he's the type to wear a little bit more, not quite like dark academia, but I think he is kind of more into like classy, a little bit more formal, more put together outfits, rather than like Masaki likes a little bit more casual, dressed down, kind of comfy clothing. Sato kind of flips between both. Obviously Koji kind of fits whatever fits like youth, I guess. But this guy kind of likes to wear like blazers, turtlenecks, sweaters, collared shirts, I don't know, button downs and stuff, button ups and all that jazz. I think when I was doing the marker portion, which you guys are seeing right now, I forgot to really look at my sketch. So there's 2 instances where I accidentally covered over parts and the sketch now no longer makes any sense. So I think the last doodle that I'm gonna do is gonna be like, I kind of just give up. And it might be because I'm feeling tired today, but who knows. So yeah, you can see the eyes I did a little bit differently. If you see me doodle usually in this style. I usually like to leave the bottom half of the eyes kind of like untouched, just the pure color of whatever eye color I decided to give them, and then the upper half is usually a lot darker, whether or not it's black or it's just like I press a lot harder with the pencil or something, and I just like the look of it. But I couldn't tell if the yellow was too pale with the black, so that it didn't even read that there was an eye color there. So I decided to color it in, but I don't think I liked it. So for the rest of the doodles, I decided to go back and just fill in the top half. So you can see that for these doodles, for the most part, other than the first one, a lot of them have like white spaces for the clothing, and it's because I wanted to mostly add in black areas with the vision needle, because I thought it'd be nice to just give it a little bit more texture and then have that higher amount of contrast. I've been using a lot of markers in my sketchbook lately, but sometimes I use it for like accents for my pencil sketches, or if I'm doing like a whole spread like you guys seen in the past, I would use the fine tip point of some darker colors and use that for line work, just to get a little bit more of either a cohesive color palette or a softer look. But I think recently I've been liking the contrast a little bit more, so I wanted to add some more like darker solid black areas, and then a lot of the areas I'm just gonna leave with a kind of like a hatching texture going across, just because I really like doing that with pen. And maybe actually maybe not. I was gonna say maybe we'll do a spread one day where I kind of focus mostly on detailing with a pen, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it'd be in the sketchbook, unless I decide to push back the last page every time. We'll see, because maybe I'll be really slow and I need another video before then. So yeah, so the doodle on the very left, yeah, kind of treated it as kind of a guinea pig, because the ink kind of feathers ever so slightly when it touches any of the Ohuhu markers rather than the Crayola markers. So it just feathers slightly, and then my hand's a little bit jittery today. So he looks a little nervous because I didn't connect the line for his mouth completely. I thought I could leave it blank, but when I decided to kind of connect them together, it kind of made like a little wibbly squiggly line for his mouth. So he looked nervous, so kind of changed his expression just a bit. And his face was a little bit also not as cleanly done because of my hands, but that's okay. I think the current doodle that I'm working on is my favorite from the spread, but it's also usually the one I like the most because it's the largest one, obviously the one I sketched first, and it takes up the majority of the space, and it kind of like stands out in the front compared to the rest. So I decided to spend a lot more time on this one, and you can see that I'm kind of doing like a hatching motion. Well, sometimes I hatch and sometimes I'm just going back and forth, so it's kind of like a looping motion going across, and I'm just doing this to get a consistent texture. And sometimes when I reach like the edges where I'm leaving it white, I'll try to let it fade out so that we can have a little bit of a gradation. So when I try to darken an area, I'll either hatch a different way, which you guys can see here, but if I do want to get a darker area where I'm doing it in one go, I will just slow down and kind of make sure that the gaps between my lines are fairly close or like not visible at all, so you can get a solid black area. And I did that mostly with the doodles on the right side because they were a lot smaller. I do like the fact that for the most part that this pen doesn't really skip when I work really quickly. Sometimes I think if I do smaller, shorter lines, it does skip or it refuses to like start the line. So that's why I think when I was doing the mouth, there was a bit of a skip and I was trying to fill it in. But you can see when I'm doing this kind of back and forth motion or like the looping motion, it doesn't really skip, which I really like because I like having that like consistency in the pen. And I've used several different like needlepoint pens in the past. If you guys can't tell, like needlepoint pens are my favorite to use like in sketchbooks or for writing. I like the consistency of the line, and I don't really care too much for line variation when I'm doodling or trying to fill in like a sketch like this, so I don't mind that it's more like of a consistent line weight. And the ink for this one dries properly, so I don't have to worry about it smudging or I have to wait until it dries or anything like that, because I know my Staedtler pen does that, and that's the reason why I don't like it, even though I do like how the Staedtler pen kind of like its ink flow and its thickness is like my favorite, but the fact that it doesn't dry on a lot of the paper surfaces that I use, I don't use it. But yeah, I think for the most part, just me filling in dark areas. So like I said, for the belt, I decided to go a lot closer and made sure that the belt read as being a lot darker than his sweater. Some areas of his sweater, I decided to do a second layer so that it looks like more of a form rather than like just it being completely flat with the texture. So if I need to, I will go over and kind of like overlap. So I think for the most part, I kind of picked up working like this when I worked in one of my old sketchbooks where it was like a larger square sketchbook, and I was playing around with, I think, just markers, and I just had a pen, and I really like being able to add detail with the pen, especially for hair or like just playing around with the line work. Because usually when I sketch in my sketchbook like this with the palette color Eno, and I know I'm going to be doing detailing, or no, coloring first and then details and lines afterwards, it just feels a little bit more freeing knowing that you can add more detail or less detail or after you color. Because I feel like if you do it before you color, your coloring is like, you feel like you have to stay within the lines. But when I'm doing the line work, I just kind of play willy-nilly. I don't really need to think about containing each color within the lines. If color leaks out or like bleeds through, then I don't really care. Or if I cut it a little bit short, it doesn't really matter. I can kind of just let it keep loose. So yeah, and not only that, a lot of my pens are not waterproof, which is usually why I do not add the color after my line work. And I don't want to really take the risk of letting my markers be contaminated by the darker inks, because if I want to keep the colors as clean as possible, it's better if it doesn't, I don't take the risk of it mixing with the inks that I'm using. But I believe, if I can check, the Uniball Vision Needle does say that it's waterproof, but I'm pretty sure I have a larger version of this, and there is a little bit of bleed, I guess, when you're using like a light color over it, and I'm not too sure if it's because it wasn't fully dried or if there is something that activates it on a specific paper type. So yeah. Oh, there is a few mistakes here. So one mistake on this one, or two mistakes, I accidentally added like clothing wrinkles on his, I guess we're gonna say his left arm, where it technically doesn't bend, so I tried to scribble it out and drop in a little bit of a shoulder so it looks like his body's a little bit more smaller now. And then the other mistake is obviously I accidentally colored in the inside of his turtleneck dark, but I was supposed to have his finger kind of pulling it so that it looks like he's letting some air through, but because I colored it in black, it doesn't look like his finger is there anymore. So yeah. And then for the last doodle, I botched up his arm and his coat by how I blocked in the color. So my idea was actually to have him have like an overcoat, like a pea coat or something over his, like a jacket and a sweater underneath. But it's like the way how you drape over your jacket without putting your arms through the sleeves, so it's just like resting on top of your shoulders. And because of that, I accidentally put the sleeves all the way down to his arms, so it looks like one side he's wearing the full coat and then the other side it's like it's just being covered, so you can't really see it. So I decided to not throw in his legs, and I decided not to throw in his hand, just because if I did, it really does make it look weird. So I didn't do it. And we're working on this one now, and it's the last little doodle here. I'm trying to get more comfortable drawing him a little bit more, and I think I am. Apologies that I actually didn't show much of me inking the hair or the face. I didn't realize it was getting cut off at the top. Apologies also that I'm a little bit congested still. I think it's because spring's finally arriving and the temperatures are still fluctuating that my body is having a hard time coping. So I'm getting congested, or I sneeze a lot and stuff, and just sinus problems, I guess, for a little while. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. I just had fun doodling him for a little bit and trying to get familiar with his hair so I can draw him more accurately and more easily whenever I draw my OCs, because I think I said this before, usually for my OCs I usually have a pattern of how I draw their hair so that it's easy for me to simplify them. But it's also, if I need to, I can also just go ahead and add more detail and it shouldn't look too weird. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed today's doodles, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!